it's Bellhaven here, and I wanted to make a video for you guys about decks. I know I've already made one, but I wanted to kind of go more into depth, as long as I can use my big kid words today, um, about some different things that I didn't really cover before. Before, I was just kind of giving you an overview and understanding of decks. Today, I actually want to go in and explain a few more things, show a couple things I didn't cover, and really try and help out give another level to deck building. So, as you can see, per the norm, I've deleted all my decks. I still stand by making a deck per instance. I really feel that there's no one deck that can cover everything. I'm sure you can make a deck that will be okay in different situations, but ultimately you want to make a deck for everything you're doing. Like I even said in my last video, if I'm going to a control point with friends, I would make a deck for that. But it would go even further than that. It would depend on which control point we're doing. Is there undead? Is there, it's you really have to make your decks to be super efficient in what you're doing. And I'm going to touch a little bit on this now too, on the PvP aspect of it. That can even go as far as knowing your opponent, knowing what your opponent's strong in, knowing what you're going to be up against. If you know that they're doing mass air attunement, you're going to want to try and build a deck that's, maybe a lot of earth, which will give you that higher attunement for air resistance or things of that nature. So I'm not going to go quite to that extent today. I just want to talk about decks, but I just want to say I really do stand by making a deck for whatever you're doing. And per the norm, I'm back here in Deep Ravenswood because I can't help myself. As a crafter, which surprise is actually what I primarily do, uh, I'm always here because I have the option to get suet from the wolves here. There's a lot of raw resources, all that good jazz. So, Deep Ravenswood is my second home. So, of course, first thing I'm going to do is name my deck. I'm going to still stick with my Enlightenment because I do like the extra intelligence buff. But I'm also going to pull out, let's see here. Bear with me while I snoop through all my glyphs. As you can tell, I have trained some things since, so that's always nice to have all those options there. But I'm going to go with Air's Embrace, which gives me dexterity. And again, I'm not explaining glyphs and skills in this video, but I can't help myself from giving you guys knowledge. So, a thing to keep in mind is different magic has different strengths to it. And I'll explain that. So, like, if you're in the air tree, Dex is actually going to be one of your strongest stats. Although there's a lot of magic spells in there, a lot of them go off of Dex. As to where the sun magic, as you can see, I get the intelligence buff because the sun is primarily based off of intelligence. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're building your deck too, because you want to have buffs that are going to be useful with what you're doing. So I already know I'm going to be using Searing Ray. So I have Enlightenment for my intelligence. I know that I'm going to be using some air skills, so I'm going to bring a dexterity buff. I know that I'm going to be doing primarily magic as well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab defensive stance because I'm going to need that little extra defensive buff. Since I'm doing magic, I don't have to worry about the decrease in attack speed. So now that I have all this in here, I know that that's the minimum amount of glyphs that I need. I want to touch base on a couple of different things. With deck building, think of it as having a deck of cards in front of you. You shuffle them all up, and then you have 5 cards pulled out and set to the side that you can always see, and those are like your emergency cards that you can grab at any point. And then you have all the other cards in the deck just shuffled up, and you don't know what you're going to get. Now, I know a lot of you like Magic players or Yu-Gi-Oh players or Force of Will players. This is already kind of a principle that's in your mind that you've already thought about. But if you haven't played any type of card games like that, it's really how you have to think about this. You have to think about what hand you want to have. when you start out a fight, or what cards you're going to want to draw when you're trying to fight somebody. So by me having 4 or 5 of each of these glyphs, I can guarantee that I will have at least, one of each of these glyphs or 2 of one of these glyphs down in this bar. There's 5 spots, 4 types of cards, and because I have so many of each, I know that they're going to be consistent. Now, if I take out a bunch of the healing touches and say I only left 2 healing touches, well, that dramatically lowers my chance of seeing that healing touch. But at the same time, it's completely random. So all you can really do is improve your odds of what you want. And as I said before, stacking skills is important because it uses less focus to do more power. And I think that's really important. So if I get a healing touch on my bar down here and it pops up, and then I get another one over here, and I stack them, that healing touch is going to heal me for a little bit more, and it's not going to cost the amount of focus it would cost to cast that spell twice. If that makes sense. Okay, so now that I got that all out of the way, some of the things I want to touch on that I didn't touch on before in the last video. I talked about locking skills, so they're always there, they never change, and I talked about having a completely open blank area. What I didn't touch base on is putting putting a skill down here, but not locking it. So I gotta make sure I know where to start on this. So if you're thinking about it like it's a deck of cards and you're drawing cards, okay? So say I have all of these locked. Say I have 3 of these like this. They're not locked, they're just in there. Okay? And say I draw the top card off of my shuffled deck. If it's Obsidian Arrow is that top card that I draw, it's going to go in this spot right here. If that spot's filled and I draw my second card and it's another Obsidian Arrow, then it can go in the Aniglyphs. But if I draw my top card and it's lightning, I don't have lightning down here, it will go in these Aniglyphs. Because these spots, it's like reserving a spot for when that card shows up. So again, if you're thinking of it like a deck of cards and you're drawing cards randomly off the top of this deck, this is just holding that spot for when that card is drawn. The second thing I want to touch on is the same principle, except if they're not locked, you can stack them if they're different ones. So like I can't do Searing Ray on top of Searing Ray because it's already there. That spot's already reserved for Searing Ray. But say if in this one spot I want it only for Obsidian Arrow and Searing Ray, that's what goes there. Then, now, when I'm drawing my cards off the top of my deck, if it's either Searing Ray or Obsidian Arrow, it will drop into that spot. And I'll leave this like this for now, just to kind of show you guys too. So let's go ahead and equip our deck. I know that sounds probably pretty funny sometimes, especially with me having a head cold. But let's go ahead and go into combat stance. You see how they're all open? But sure enough, that's exactly what I was talking about. That very first card that was drawn was an Obsidian Arrow, so it went right in the Obsidian Arrow spot. The next 2 cards were both also Obsidian Arrow, so they went into the blank spaces. And now since this one was already filled and Searing Ray come up, it went into the Searing Ray position. So you kind of see how that works when they come up. So like say if I start stacking these, you'll notice that even though this has been empty, the heal hadn't came up, so it stayed blank and it reserved the spot for the heal. And as you can tell, I'm stacking the skills now too also, which is a big thing I talk about. But so this Obsidian Arrow is dropping. It will not have another card go in there unless it's an Obsidian Arrow or a Searing Ray. And then of course we have our 2 empty spots, which is the only place lightning can go into. Whoops. So that's something I wanted to touch on because I didn't explain that at all in my last video. I was trying to just be an overview on deck building. So there's that. As I said, there's 2 times where I will consider using that. And that's when I'm healing and I know that I need certain heals. If I'm only doing healing, I will put Healing Touch in one, Healing Burst in another, and then I'll always have some rotating. Always, always, always have some rotating. because, it opens that up. Now, another beautiful thing about doing this is it does kind of give you the best of both worlds. Not only do you know that that's a spot where that spell is going to come up, so if you're playing and not really looking at, like I rock my bar down here. Some people put it up here, over here, whatever's easiest for you to see. But if you don't have time to really look, say you're dueling somebody or, you're at a PvP tournament, you don't always have time to sit there and check your bar. You don't have time to see what all's there. This way, you can know it's there. And also, it still doesn't get cooldowns though. So as I mentioned before, if you lock it on your bar, it is subject to cooldown, which I discussed. Then also, everything that I have locked on my bar, by the time it's off cooldown, I still have it. I don't even need it then. I mean, I'll spam it just to guarantee I have it sometimes, but I don't have to. Those cooldowns are fine because by the time I need it, it's going to be off cooldown. But when they're not locked and just rotating in the bar, it's a way to guarantee I know that's where it's going to be, and I can still spam it if need be. That cooldown's not going to apply. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, you can stack them. You can say, okay, I want all my damage spells in this one button, so I can just sit here and hit this one button. You can do that, and then you say, I want all my heals. So if I say I had a healing ray, healing burst, I can stack those here. So I say, this spot's where I'm going to have all my heals. It's just different ways to look at it. And then, of course, if you want to remove them, you just right-click and say remove card, and it will go back up into your rotating. It won't remove the glyph. So remove card, remove card. As you see, my 18 glyphs are still there. It was just showing that it's reserving the spot for that one. But that's another thing to note too. If you're removing a glyph off of here and you don't want it in your deck at all anymore, remember to go in and remove it out of here and replace it with a different card. And so, that's just some different things on deck building and some ways to look at it so that, understanding just how decks work. I mean, it's called a deck. So initially, you're going to think a deck of playing cards or a deck of a game that you're playing, like Magic or any game like that. I think Magic's the biggest one. I know I played that for years. So that's the first one I think of. But it's the same principle. You can have only as many as you have glyphs. So I only have my lightning up to 40, so I have 4 glyphs. My obsidian arrow's at 41, but I still only have 4 glyphs. My healing touch, so I can only have so many of each of those. I run 4 because those are the ones I know I'm going to be using. Those are the ones that I know is going to be what I'm going to be implementing. So I hope this kind of helps give you a more in-depth idea of how decks work and a more in-depth look into that. I would go fight something, but I think I think you guys have seen enough of me trying to fight things. It doesn't always go so well. So I probably will go fight some things though, try and get some suet and make some more armor. But as always, if you guys have any questions or anything, I do try to get back to you as fast as I can. Leave them in the comments below and I will comment back and let you know what I know. All of this is just out of my knowledge base, so this is what I'm understanding. This is how I'm taking everything in. If you guys have anything to add or input, something else that can help, feel free to put it in the comments below because that's all we're here for, right? Is to help each other and get better at this game. So comment, like, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys. Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face, tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.